If we truly want to understand and prevent acts of rampage, it is not enough to pathologize perpetrators or portray them as monsters. These narratives may offer comfort as they banish the unbearable from the social realm into the abnormal, but they fall short. Because what if it is not the individual who has failed, but a system that has, over a long time, overlooked, humiliated, or forgotten them? We must learn to see the invisible, the cold mechanisms of social order, the everyday humiliation that takes place through language, glances, exclusion, and ignorance. It is a silent violence that makes no headlines, but leaves deep wounds. Those who go unseen, unheard, and unacknowledged for a long time often carry a burden that eats away from within. Sometimes it is a quiet dying by degrees. Sometimes this distress erupts in destructive violence against oneself or others. Structural blindness to psychological distress is not just about a lack of therapy options or underfunded prevention. It also shows in the social climate, in performance pressure without recognition, in standardized ideals of success, in the tabooing of weakness. Where the human being is reduced to their function, resonance is lost, and with it the ability to notice in time when someone begins to slip away. The media play a central role in this context. They often show the act, rarely the path leading to it. Headlines are easier to write with names, photos, and motives than with questions about school failure, a broken care system, or the years-long isolation of a young person. Media logic is one of simplification, but in the case of rampage attacks, that simplification backfires. It creates myths instead of analysis, fear instead of insight. A perverse reversal also looms. Attention can become a reward. The perpetrator becomes a figure, even if a negative one. The victims fade from view. We need new ethical standards for how violence is reported, not for reasons of censorship, but to create spaces for understanding rather than fear. If school is merely a filter for performance and not a place of human connection, it fails its most essential purpose. Education must not only convey knowledge, but also enable bonding, trust, listening, accompaniment. Teachers are not responsible for social failings, but they are often the last people to see young people regularly. They need time, space, and support to recognize mental distress, not as diagnosticians, but as people in resonance. Prevention begins where children learn that they are heard, where feelings are named, where conflicts are not ignored or punished but understood, where a no is not immediately seen as rebellion but as a sign of overload, where it is permitted not to function. Our language, too, carries responsibility. Those who speak of ticking time bombs or mental breakdowns reproduce images that dehumanize. Mental illness is not a moral failing. Violence is not simply losing it. We need a more careful approach to words, not for political correctness, but because language shapes reality. A language that differentiates can protect. It recognizes the difference between individual guilt and structural co-responsibility. It takes suffering seriously without excusing it, and it creates space for the question of how much loneliness a society can actually endure before it breaks. Prevention is more than early detection. It is an attitude, a willingness to look, to ask, to be present. A society that wants to recognize warning signs early must be ready to open itself to the unpleasant, the disruptive, the disturbing. It needs low threshold support systems, basic psychological care, school social work, but above all, a climate in which people are allowed to show themselves before they explode. The real question is not, why did no one notice anything? But, why did no one consider that something might be missing? Understanding does not mean forgiving, but those who seek to understand must not settle for easy answers. The abysses revealed by rampage attacks are also mirrors of a society that too often looks away when pain speaks too softly.